And a welcome from the Coral Laundromat studio for Weather and Ag in Focus. Hey, speaking of Coral Laundromat, boy, they've got a pretty awesome setup over there for you. So let's say that it does cool off this coming weekend as predicted, and things get a little blustery. Well, if you need to be somewhere, why not be inside? And you can catch up on your laundry in a large quantity very quickly. They've got folding tables, food and beverage vending machines, flat screen TVs, a fireplace, and a children's play area. That's the Coral Laundromat. It is over on 3620 Veterans Boulevard. Stop by, tell them we sent you on over. All right, it's a busy day out there. We were expecting what Dean's forecast said last week was we were going to see Sunday as our pick day of the week. Seemed a little brisk. Today might be better. Addison, I think that Dean might have left some weather for us. Can you tell us what it is? All right. That weather is brought to us by Progressive Ag. They are our risk management specialists, and we thank them very much for being a part of Weather and Ag in Focus here. It sounds like cooler temperatures on Saturday. He mentioned a potential dusting of snow. Well, if you have not yet bought your tickets for the North Dakota FFA Gala, which is on Saturday, it is at the Holiday Inn. That is going to be held starting at like 5 o'clock, I believe, is when we host social hour. You can still join us. There's entertainment that evening. It is an adult event because there will be a cash bar present. So we're not asking FFA members to attend. We really want this to be the adults. It is a way for us to do some fundraising through the ticket sales, a live auction, a silent auction, and those dollars help us with students when they are earning scholarships and award travel for conventions and so much more. In fact, again, if you want to attend, it's the North Dakota FFA Gala. It is this Saturday, and that is November the 8th. And in fact, come talking about what's been going on with FFA, those kids are all just barely home from National FFA Convention. That was last week in Indianapolis. Things fired off throughout the week. The majority of the convention was held Thursday, Friday, Saturday. A new national officer team was elected. Additionally, there were students participating in national contests. I saw results from North Dakota and Minnesota who had a great showing. There were adults who received their honorary FFA degrees while they were there, and students who earned their American FFA degree, meaning that you have completed hours of service. You have shown your leadership skills. You have competed in contests and you have had your supervised ag experience program. And so that is truly your version of entrepreneurship. You have the opportunity to start your own business, work for an agribusiness. Maybe you have a livestock enterprise where you're raising some beef animals or sheep. Perhaps you are farming. Well, by using those skills and you put them into um, your record books, your record keeping, students have the ability to earn that National American FFA degree, and many did. So, congratulations to all those students who are home, who were crowned winners, champions, got their degrees, and so much more. And for the students who were attending, they also saw leadership programs that they got to be a part of, a gigantic career fair, which also helps students look at college options. as well as what they could potentially be doing in the future. So it's a pretty big convention, one of the largest that we've seen in the nation because of the size of this youth organization. And an announcement was made that Indianapolis as a city has stepped up to host that convention through the year 2040. Now, some of us are old enough to remember going to Kansas City when we were in high school, and Kansas City was already a big deal. I mean, wow, what a car trip, right? Thought it was a big thing when you drove down there. That convention has now expanded beyond what most communities in the United States can hold because you're talking about 75, 80,000 students, advisors, and guests showing up for a convention. So it is quite sizable. Well, more things going on in the neighborhood. I received a press release this morning from the North Dakota Forest Service. If you recall, Beth Hill with the Forest Service was with us on Friday. We had a great conversation about so many things that, yes, first of all, North Dakota has a Forest Service. What do they do in our state? And so much more. And Beth included me on a press release indicating that a prescribed burn will be happening in the Cheyenne National Grassland. The work may begin as soon as Monday, November 3rd, and continue until the 10th, or as favorable conditions do exist. The prescribed fires are to help reduce overgrown vegetation, to protect communities, infrastructure, and also natural resources from uncontrolled wildfires. Now, there are 3 separate burns planned for a total of 2,000 acres near McLeod, North Dakota. There are no planned road closures. However, one of the identified burn units is along State Highway 27. So please drive cautiously, follow the posted signage, and expect short-term smoke impacts. Also, no trail closures of the North Country Trail are planned at this time. So for those of you who are listening and living in that region near McLeod, then you start to see what might be happening down there for smoke, flames, etc. There are prescribed burns going on with the North Dakota Forest Service. Now, y'all know that I love to answer your questions. And in fact, I appreciate the emails and the phone calls that we get. And today is no different. You are welcome to call me on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. You can email me, ag@flagfamily.com. That inbox is powered by Superior Grain Equipment, that you can protect your farm's future with Superior Grain storage, drying, and handling solutions. Check them out, superiorbins.com. Now, we additionally have going on a live stream. Now, not everybody follows the live stream. Often you might be just listening over the airwaves. Well, as we prepare for our WDAY Radio Farm Show on Wednesday, you may want to consider looking at some of our live stream choices because there'll be so much action going on. You might want to see what's happening on video as well as what you can hear. Our live streams are daily on Facebook and YouTube under WDAY Weather and Ag in Focus. Also, Acres TV. And I look forward to one of the things we're doing on Wednesday is we'll be joined by Darren Hefty. He's with Ag PhD Media and Hefty Seed Company in Baltic, South Dakota. We're going to talk about Acres TV. You've heard me describe it. Now let's hear it from the folks who really do run it. But again, all those phone calls that you have, you are welcome to reach out to me, 701-293-9000. This Friday, we kick off a new segment. We're going to be joined every Friday at the 1:20 time mark by Greg Hansen. He is with Hansen Agri-Commodities, and we are going to start doing a summary of the markets. And I feel like it's going to take a little bit because there has been so much activity as of late that we're seeing. People have lots of questions, and if you have them, I'd offer that you can send them to me via email. Again, that is ag@flagfamily.com. My inbox is powered by Superior Grain Equipment. We'd love to have those questions to share so that I can ask them on air of Greg when he joins us. So much to come with our day. I don't have Dean joining me today, but it's kind of a day I get to catch up on some headlines and things that are happening with the show because frankly, I don't always get that time every day. There's a lot that happens here on Weather and Ag in Focus in that hour on weekdays between 1 and 2 o'clock. So we're going to get a chance to get our market update from the American Ag Network. We want to hear where the livestock markets sit today. We're hoping to see more of a rally continue in beef prices, and that going directly to the farmer. I didn't mean beef prices at the grocery store, although I am seeing some changes in what we see at the grocery store. If you're paying attention, you are noticing reasonable beef prices from time in different places at different times. So we'll talk more about that after the market report and when we return. Stay tuned. Well, we're going to make sure that things go smoothly this week, and we hope that you are too. And by that, you could give Chris Sherman a call over at Tech Support Farm. And if you don't have a chance to make the phone call, at least do the fence check assessment on his website. And that is techsupportfarm.com, because you want to see, are you covered? Are you not? What are the things that we got to do to protect ourselves with cybersecurity these days, with all the online banking, insurance, government payments, and more? We've got to be careful. And I hope you're talking to Chris regularly. Again, that Chris Sherman with Tech Support Farm. Okay, now You all know that this fall we have been lucky enough to have Cass County Farm Bureau acting as sponsor for our Assistant Ag Directors program here at WDAY Radio. And first of all, a huge thank you to all the students who have been participating. And I have more lined up for the next few months. These students have really stepped up and been doing a phenomenal job of joining me on air when it's time to interview guests, ask questions, talk about headlines, and also they've been fill-in hosts for me. So if I can't be here because I'm doing something else, like Saturday I'll be emceeing the FFA gala, but I don't have a show right then. Otherwise, I could call a student to be my backup. Well, speaking of those students and Cass County Farm Bureau sponsorship of them, those students are going to be joining me. I have two of them coming back to help out with the WDAY Radio Farm Show on Wednesday. That is this Wednesday, November 5th. You've been hearing me talk about it. I'll start at 8:30 in the morning, right after Bonnie and Friends, and go till 5 o'clock. And it is going to be all day farm programming. I have different themes set up for each hour. And so you have the opportunity to listen, call with questions. I have some games to play for prizes, but the hourly themes are things like water and land management. Certainly, we're going to talk about commodity prices, trade, tariff, etc. Got an hour on livestock, agronomy, equipment, and then an hour specifically just about financial and health, financial health and physical health for farms. Now, you're thinking to yourself, but I'm listening at my desk. I'm not a farmer. But that's okay. Consider this Farming 101 for a day. You get to listen, ask questions. You'll hear the story of what's going on in the marketplace right now, direct from those who are interacting in it on a daily basis. What an awesome time to learn and ask more questions. And so I'm excited to have you all be a part of it. Again, if you have photos of your farm, aerial pictures, such as the days gone by when folks would fly over, snap a photo of your farm, and be sending it or stopping by later and selling it to you in one of those really cool frames, well, send me some pictures of them. You can do that at ag@flagfamily.com, and I would love to be able to share those throughout the day while we're on air. Again, that's on Wednesday, November the 5th. Now, other things that are going to be happening today, one of them is the fact that U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins, who's had a busy couple of weeks, well, she was not only the convention speaker at the National FFA Convention in Indianapolis, she had an opportunity to get in front of about 75,000 FFA members. She also is planning that today, Monday, she will be talking to the Mexican president, and things that are on their agenda are certainly talking about whether or not to reopen the Mexican border to cattle imports to the U.S. in light of what's been going on with the New World screwworm. Also, there'll be further discussions about a new sterile fly facility, when that will be opening and put online to be helpful. There's about 250,000 head of cattle that are really waiting to move over from Mexico, but in the United States, we're not yet completely convinced that we have this pest under control, and our cattlemen are very concerned about the health and safety of their own herds before we start moving these animals to the north. I would not be surprised if there's also some discussion about corn. We all know that corn is a huge commodity crop for Mexico. They depend on that not only because of livestock feed, but white corn for human consumption. And a lot of our U.S. yellow corn goes down to Mexico to be used for livestock, etc. But there has been some question as to a future trade with Mexico over our U.S. yellow corn. And I would venture a guess that that will be part of the conversations that U.S. Secretary Brooke Rollins will indeed be having in Mexico with the Mexican president here today. Might even be hanging on for an extra couple of days as well. Harvest is doing everything it can. Every day I get more and more reports or texts or messages from folks saying they wrapped up their corn. Not everybody's done yet. And also, I think that it's important to note that a lot of soybeans are off, but not done. You may have wet spots in the field. You got to go back out that because you were having to avoid, getting your combine stuck, that type of thing. So there's some follow-up that needs to be finished. A lot of folks are going to want to continue to get into those areas as soon as they can. And if we see cooler temperatures, that ground starts to freeze up a little bit, we have an opportunity to get there because the ground's going to be firm. even though there could be a warm up again next week. We might be back up into the 50s, which I'm still holding out hope that we don't have to worry about a heavy amount of snow until after Thanksgiving. I'm all for a white Christmas, but I'm okay with a brown Thanksgiving too. I'd be all right with that. All right. More things that are going on governmentally right now. With government shutdown continuing, USDA data is trying to be made available. The National Ag Statistics Service has announced release dates for key reports that include the supply demand report and crop production reports, which should be coming out on November 14th. Now, these reports were originally scheduled on November 10th. They are being a little bit delayed. Also, the milk production report that was supposed to come at the end of October will come out November 10th. Cattle on feed report will be released November 21st, which was its originally scheduled date. Most of the agency is furloughed, and so we don't really know how USDA is going to compile the information, but we are being told that we will have an opportunity to start looking at some of this information coming in from USDA very shortly. Now, many farmers are at or below their break-even point on their commodities right now. And if you talk to some folks who are farm business managers these days, where they are working closely with farmers on their balance sheets, helping them to make good marketing decisions, they know that there's areas where folks are struggling with a profit. It's not everywhere, but for several people, this might be the third year prices not quite being where they need to be to hit a significant profit for the farm, or really, I shouldn't even say significant. In some cases, it's pretty razor thin. So, number one, there needs to be a really good risk management plan for farms, understanding how to market, what they need to plan ahead for, etc. And crop insurance is by far one of those discussion points. I would venture a guess as we get towards the end of this calendar year, as farmers start to discuss with their accountants and their tax preparers what will be happening going into next year, I bet their crop insurance agent is probably also going to be fairly helpful as well. So the U.S. and Japan had signed a new framework trade agreement recently in Southeast Asia, and the National Potato Council was disappointed the agreement did not include fresh market access for U.S. potatoes. The U.S. fresh potato shipments to Japan could add another $150 million and boost our global potato exports by 10 to 15%. Now, it's known that our chief agricultural ambassador will want to continue those negotiations and try to see improvements on what might be moving to various countries and looking at more crops outside of just corn and soybeans. And so there's still potential that we might get some U.S. fresh potato exports to Japan, although they are stalled out in the short term. All right, let's talk about more things after we have a chance to hear our news here at the bottom of the hour. Stick with me, and remember, you can always call with questions on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. I'll be right back. Glad to have you here, and thanks for following along through the summer with our Here We Grow project. We custom farmed 20 acres of wheat near Gardner, North Dakota. We used our farm cooperators, Jim and Michael Hewland, and they did a fantastic job. We had some issues with Mother Nature trying to hold back our yield, but nonetheless, it went extremely well. And we had the help of some sponsors who wanted to be a part of our project. We have ND Estate Services because just remember, they can take a very complicated process and make it simple for your family. You can be well educated on probate, guardianship, saving yourselves from taxes, and so much more. So check out ndestateservices.com. And then Thor Buildings. One of the, well, not one of, but the last video that we did for that series was at a building site near Ewan, Minnesota for Thor Buildings. It's a farm shop. And I was very excited to see all the features and benefits that they put into that shop. And when you compare the size of the equipment that they were trying to still work on in their small shop, you can understand why those changes have been made to wanting to use a new shop. It's kind of like your garage, right? The car your grandma drove doesn't necessarily fit in your garage the same. It doesn't your car doesn't necessarily fit in her garage anymore, right? The cars have changed, and so have our garages, so have our parking spaces, and farm shops not necessarily any different. So again, check out that video with Thor Building. That is with our Here We Grow project. Well, some of those names that I just talked about, you're going to be hearing on Wednesday again for our WDAY Radio Farm Show. I am very excited to see folks like Peterson Farm Seed are going to be joining us. We'll have ND Estate Services on for the day. We're going to have Red River Retention Authority, Ellingson Company, but others as well as Frayne Olson with NDSU. I also have Andrew Friskop with NDSU. Let's talk about some of the disease problems that are moving into the region. You'll hear voices from Mosaic Company, Agvice, GK Technology, Alsager Meats, Butler Equipment, and Purple Wave Auctions. So many more. That's just some of them. So make sure to mark your calendar so you can listen or watch. Again, we'll have it all in our live streams throughout the day. Well, excuse me, as we start thinking about what's been happening through the growing season this year and getting into harvest, often labor is a question. How did we do with labor this year on the farm? Do we have enough people to get what we needed done? Well, sorry, needed to take a drink there. There is a new product that's being well tested that you might want to be considering to help solve some labor concerns. It's called Outrun. It's run and developed by PTx Trimble, which is formed by AGCO and Trimble together. And it enables a tractor and an auger cart. They write auger cart in these things. We all know it's a grain cart. Auger cart must be somebody from Illinois writing. And I say that on purpose because my friend Rob Sharkey, the shark farmer, considers it an auger cart. And I know he's wrong. But anyway, that grain cart can team up and move autonomously to catch the combine on the go. The system uses Starlink connectivity and the PTx Trimble location technology. So while the combine's guidance and steering system remains unchanged, field boundaries are loaded into the Outrun system, and that keeps the cart and the tractor where it needs to be. It's kind of like a dog on a shot collar. It can't leave the field, meaning that there's a GPS fence around the field that keeps it from leaving a defined area. So the cart can be staged or called for unloading without the need for another driver. Now, once full, the combine operator can send the cart to a predefined truck unloading zone for that unload situation. An operator will be needed to unload the cart to the truck. And once you get a full tank, you call for the cart pulls up beside the combine, you unload on the go, and then you can send it off to the truck where it needs to go next. Now, the truck driver will then disengage the cart, fill the truck, and then re-engage the cart so the combine operator takes control of the whole system once again. Outrun is currently available for model year 2014 or newer with John Deere 8R tractors with the infinitely variable transmission, IVT, and it will be commercially available on Fendt models in the year 2026. So if you have a potential for using a Fendt tractor coming up in 2026, you can learn more about that PTx Trimble Outrun system, and it can be found at outrunag.com. Now, the system already knows where the farmer continued to cut corn, and it's going to use that area as a path, so it doesn't mow down other crop that hasn't been harvested yet. Now, as a kid whose dad really wanted her to learn to unload on the go, and we're talking about using like a C60 single axle truck, next to a John Deere 95, and I didn't hit the header. So number one, that was my win. Number two, it scared the pants off me trying to do that because I knew somehow if I messed this up, I was getting yelled at. But this seems a lot better and maybe safer too than having your 12-year-old daughter driving the truck next to the combine. Rest in peace, Dad, but we didn't always make good decisions in the field. I'm just saying. Now, let's talk about livestock for just a moment. The Animal Agricultural Alliance has published a new Meat Matters Guide. This guide is a science-based resource highlighting meat, dairy, poultry, eggs, and seafood and why they are essential to a balanced diet and sustainable food system. You know, if you have teachers out there that are teaching uh, the new FACS, Family Consumer Sciences, that we used to call home ec, maybe this is an item that they could have. Because if we're going to talk about food and nutrition, what a great way to highlight some of the proteins that we have available. And many of us are putting a higher emphasis on protein goals anyway, whether it's through the carnivore diet, whether we're seeing it through the use of GLP-1 drugs. Protein goals, especially the animal protein, is really a nutrient-dense food choice. So some of the highlights from this report, they talk about complete protein powder. Many animal proteins provide all 9 essential amino acids that can support essential bodily functions. For your brain and blood health, vitamin B12, if you're not familiar with it, an essential nutrient only found naturally in animal-sourced foods. Heart health. Research is showing that animal proteins like lean beef can fit a heart-healthy diet, and you want to make sure to be using that with your favorite fruits and vegetables in a good balance. Also, incorporating higher levels of protein at meals, in between meals as well, can really lead to an increased feeling of fullness, less snacking, and that helps support all of our weight loss goals. Now, look, I don't think this is rocket science. Many of us know these things right off the bat, but practicing them isn't always as preaching them. But here is a great guide that we could be using to talk about how important animal proteins are in our human diet. And it also makes mention about sustainability progress in this report. U.S. animal agriculture only accounts for 4% of total greenhouse emissions. So you can see why I get a little testy when people want to try to tell me that our livestock are killing us with greenhouse gas emissions. 4%. 4%. I want those who are riding on their jet to lecture me about how I should eat differently to consider that, right? And we are reducing that 4% level annually because we're using more methane digesters, because we have additives to feed that we can reduce methane emissions from livestock, because frankly, we just do a better job farming every day. And it's not our animals, right? We're more efficient in our fuel use. That's why we're using variable rate technologies. So we're not using an excessive amount of fuel. We're not seeing overlap in the fields and so much more. We are doing a great job in our farming every day. So again, that is the Meat Matters Guide. It includes a fridge-ready poster that you can put out and compare the nutritional profiles of animal protein sources based on your dietary needs and preference. So if you're interested in finding that report, you can always drop me an email, ag@flagfamily.com. I would be happy to share an answer with you there. Again, my inbox is powered by the Superior Grain Equipment. I had a text message just now from one of our listeners, said he does know one corn and soybean producer near Hillsboro who probably still has about 2,000 acres of standing corn. I'm not completely surprised at that. We've had some areas where they just cannot get back into the field. And I've mentioned before that Devil's Lake to Minot region has continuously had a lot of rainfall. And they know that they're not going to get back in the field until we truly freeze over and do not get all of that ground to freeze up a little bit, get a little stiffer out there, you might say. Now, I just was talking about what's going on when it comes to animal proteins and how good they are for us. I don't like to see businesses fail. So please don't take this as gloating when I'm talking about where Beyond Meat is at these days. But their shares are trading below $1 as of just the last week or so. And their investors are really fretting over their company's plan to cut more debt by issuing more shares. It is bad news for that plant-based meat producer. They've been struggling with weak demand for their burgers, sausage, and other products. In fact, their net revenue was down 15% in the first 6 months of this year. Now, here's the thing. I know that for Beyond Meat, they wanted to be supportive of our pulse crop growers like peas, lentils, etc. That's great. That's a wonderful outlet for those plants to go to be used in a different way. But man, did they miss their target market. For Beyond Meat to think that they were going to change most carnivores over to that product as a meat replacement really wasn't in their best interest. Had they been considering maybe looking at vegans and vegetarians who are already using that lifestyle, they'd have had a much better acceptance rate. But I just don't see where their marketing was working very well for them. Right now, Beyond Meat's stock has been closing down. Their shares are down, and they were down 12% recently, just in one day of midday trading. Now, the company at one point was the plant-based meat industry darling when it went public in 2019, and they attracted a ton of celebrity investors. Uh, those folks had big plans to expand overseas, etc. But U.S. demand for those products never really took off, and consumers were not excited about the very long list of ingredients or the inflation-related cost increases that were going on at the same time. And so demand has been slightly higher in Europe for Beyond Meat. McDonald's sells a Beyond Meat plant-based burger and nuggets over there, but a lot of U.S. food chains have been very reluctant to add Beyond Meat to their menus. The one that probably touted it the most was Burger King. To be perfectly honest, I wouldn't know if Burger King still has it on their menu. That's probably a little research tidbit I could do. So that's where Beyond Meat stands today. Again, unfortunately, they have lost a lot of money and dollars not only on the stock market, but as far as their investors are concerned, they're not overly pleased about the entire situation, I'm afraid. So let's continue with headlines and so much more when we return. So stay tuned for the last segment that we'll do today for Weather and Ag in Focus. So, if you're thinking about the weather, first of all, let's not start singing Christmas carols yet. So, I'm not going to launch into one of those. But thinking about the weather, well, all signs are pointing to a significant cool down for the last half of this week. We're seeing an Arctic air mass trying to spill down out of Canada, and it's likely going to affect us here in the Red River Valley in Minnesota and drop our temperatures into the 20s and the teens. Today, we're enjoying close to 50 degrees and sunshine, which is awesome, but it's going to be a little chilly, particularly Saturday, maybe even Sunday. And that should only be cold weather for a couple of days before our temperatures turn moderate and actually tend to warm back up. So here we are having yet another very kind fall. And I know that most folks are happy to have that. Unless you're a snowbird and you're ready to leave at this point in time, well, that's up to you. But the rest of us are kind of enjoying it for right now. So going to be a full week. I've talked many times about our WDAY Radio Farm Show on Wednesday. But tomorrow, I will be joined here on air by Brent Lytle. He is with TerraClear. For all of us who have a little PTSD from picking rocks as children, TerraClear has a solution for you. No more forcing the kids out there to pick rocks, throwing them in buckets, or even if you had to use the windrower to pick them up, etc. And certainly those who talk about throwing rocks in a stone boat. This is very different. We're going to use the technology off a drone, some software, and an specially designed rock bucket to make our lives easier. So tomorrow, our discussion with TerraClear will be a lot of fun. Thursday, it's a timely topic for us with Angie Johnson. She is our NDSU Ranch and Safety Specialist. Angie's going to help us as we talk about getting ready for the winter month. We're filling a lot of grain bins, and then that means it won't be long before we're emptying them all back out. Well, let's be safe about it, and she's got some tips and tricks for us in regards to that. Friday kicks off our very first conversation with Greg Hansen. He is with Hansen Agro Commodities. We're going to do a market report where we're going to talk through what in the world is going on this week in all of our crop commodity markets. Excited to talk with Greg about that. In fact, if I go look at what we named it, we even gave it its very own name, and it's called Market Uncovered with Greg Hansen. So be ready for the Market Uncovered report that day. Lastly, on Friday, we're going to be joined by a couple of our very special guests who are going to help us with the Why Do Farmers Do That segment. We have an opportunity to hear from Naomi Orr, who's right from this Red River Valley area, just not in a farming capacity. And Naomi is joined by a great friend of the show, that's Steve Bello, and they are going to be bringing us a pile of questions, and we're going to have a lot of fun answering the Why Do Farmers Do That for a segment this week. Now, more things that are going on right now in the headlines of the day. Well, let's check a couple more of those out right now. One, researchers have developed a smartphone-based AI system that predicts the ripeness and internal quality of avocados. I'm going to do it. Here comes avocados from Mexico. Well, avocados are probably the most wasted fruit globally due to overripeness. And let's be honest, when it comes to avocados, here in North Dakota, I feel like I have approximately 3.5 minutes to get it while it's good. Other than that, things start to go downhill. It's either rock hard or they get really soft. Well, this is a research team that's comprised of scientists from Oregon State and Florida State Universities, and they have trained an AI model using more than 1,400 iPhone images of hot avocados. The system is predicting firmness, which is a key indicator of ripeness, and they're getting it right at 92% accuracy. The internal quality, whether it's fresh or rotten, they're hitting an 84% accuracy with it. Now, researchers believe these accuracy rates can be improved as more images are added to the model. They also note that the technology has the potential to assess the ripeness and quality of other types of fruit. The reduction in food waste potential here is tremendous. About 30% of the world's food production is wasted at this point in time. So in response to this challenge, USDA and the EPA have set a national goal to reduce food waste by 50% by the year 2030. It's only just over 4 years away, ladies and gentlemen. Avocados? Well, they are just the beginning. This technology could be applied much more broadly to help not only us as the starving for guacamole consumer, but retailers and distributors as well, so we can make smarter choices and have less waste. So if you are interested in this, the findings were recently published in the Current Research in Food Science magazine. I think it is fantastic to have the opportunity to discuss avocados more thoroughly and more accurately. And if this app comes to fruition, a bunch of us are going to be downloading it. I can see that right now. Well, we've been talking about so many things when it comes to protein and food today. It's probably best I already had lunch, or I would certainly have to be going and finding some real quickly. Now, let's talk about just a couple of other things that might be happening out in the world. One of them is there is an animal activist community. They have launched an $865 million anti-meat campaign. This is going to get my ire up just a little bit. The Animal Agricultural Alliance has issued updated reports this month on the current state of vegan and animal activist movements in the United States. The major animal activist groups has highlights that show the strategic and interconnected nature of animal activist movements. The Radical Vegan Activism report details these trends and shows what's the true identity of many key players who are trying to stop the progression of animal agriculture in the United States. Findings in this report show that animal rights extremist attacks have targeted farm and food workers, including 189 actions taken against agriculture in 2024. There were 59 incidents of vandalism, 43 cases of animal theft and or release, 31 cases of trespassing, and 5 of arson. There was recently a mink farm in the central Midwest that was targeted, and I'm going to talk more on that on another day. But when people think that they're doing the right thing, that they are letting these animals go who have literally been domesticated and have no idea what is going on outside of their safety, and they don't know where to find food or water, we're not saving anybody. In fact, we're making the situation much worse. We'll talk more about that and what happened on those mink farms coming up very soon. If you are looking for something else to do this afternoon, well, first and foremost, don't go anywhere until the Jay Thomas Show is over at 5 o'clock. But after that, I do have a couple of podcasts out there you can pick up. One is called The Rural Well, and it focuses on rural communities and farmers. We talk a lot about mental health as well as a little bit about physical health. And again, that is The Rural Well. And then every Friday at 11:30, I host on Twitter, X if you will, the Nooner Chat. And that comes out as a podcast twice a month as well. So if you've missed any back episodes of the Nooner Chat, you can pick those up on any podcast platform that you'd like, such as Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. So again, you're not going to want to go anywhere because the Jay Thomas Show is coming up next, and it'll be a fun-filled rest of your afternoon. See y'all soon.